Hello, hello, hello. Hey, this is Janelle Hudson, and welcome to The Podcast with a unique host with a special quality of telling it like it isn't. This is a skill very few have. Count how many times you end up thinking to yourself, that's complete BS. The show today is sponsored by Judd's Designs at juddsdesigns.com. Go Blade.
Judd made me this one with nothing on it. I love a coffee cup with no logo on it. And he charges more for these with no logo on them. Gotta stop worrying about my health. I suffer through anxiety, I have panic attacks, stress, because I have 3 kids. And I'm not talking about 18, 17, and 14. I'm talking about younger than 10-year-old kids. I've never had any stress before. Panic attacks, anxiety before. Now I do. And they give me this one little pill. And it's one little pill and it makes me a nicer person. And you have to be when you got 3 little crumb snatchers running around the house getting in trouble. I got one that's 4, caught him with his hand in the silverware, drawer the other day, pulling knives out, running around laughing like this, like Chucky. They're opening up the furnace room, sticking their head in. God, one day the kid had my drill. Bzz, Daddy, it's a drill. It sure is. And you got to be careful what you say about them. And the pills that make me nicer really help me out a lot. Because instead of saying, like I said this when they were 1 or 2 because, they didn't understand me, I'd say, shut the hell up. I'm trying to watch TV. Now they're older and they start to remember stuff and they start to accumulate grudges at this point. And they get to be 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. They remember stuff. I know because I do. Never forget the day. My dad says, I'm going to the grocery store. And I'm like, Daddy, can I go to the grocery store with you? And he said, no, Blade, I'll be back in, an hour and a half, but I'll bring you a surprise. So I sat there on that porch, on the steps, for an hour and a half, and he came back with a couple of grocery bags, and I followed him into the kitchen without nagging, and he put down the grocery bags and unpacked them. No surprise for Blade. And I walked out of there with my shoulders shrugging, and I was so upset. And I'll never forgive the man for not bringing me a surprise that day. And I was 9. So that's the good thing about taking these nice pills. I'm a whole lot nicer. Now I say things like, hey, kids, would you please be quiet because Daddy's trying to watch curling on the Olympics. And if they laugh at me like half the time they do, because there's no emanating threat coming, I'll just take their tablets and hide them and they won't get them for a month. That's the worst I can do. Hope this phase passes and they turn into be nicer people as they get older. All you do is worry when you got kids, man. I asked my mom that. She had 5. Worry, worry, worry. That's all she ever did was worry. I'd ask her, Mom, why'd you have 5 kids? All you guys do is worry. And I was the oldest one. And she'd say, well, Blade, that's what everybody was doing back then. 2 words, baby boomers, she told me. Everybody was having these big families back then. I asked my dad that. Dad, why do you have 5 kids? All you guys do is worry. And he would just scurry off. He'd never talk about anything like that. Anything that even comes close to having anything to do with sex, off he went. We didn't talk about that, ever. At any time did we ever talk about girls. I'm not like that. I don't care. I'll talk about anything. And I've told myself, I don't give a shit if girls or boys in the house, how old they are. I'll talk about anything. Yeah. The other day. Look, you're starting to get boobies. I want it to be so that there are no secrets in this house, that nothing shocks anyone. That's training for the world, people. It is. They'll go out in the world and they won't be shocked and they won't be protected or sheltered. I ain't having no sheltered kids. I'm not. And I found out they're nice kids. They are, and they don't repeat things that I say. And I'm always nice to them. They don't get my nonsense yet. They will when I get older. That's all I'm good for is nonsense. I can't do math. I can't help them with their math. I'm terrible at that. If they want to write a joke or a sentence, then I can help them, but that's it. I'm not even that good at writing jokes, but I can write a sentence. Fuck, worrying. Look at this guy. His name is Dapo Ibrahim. And he says that his grandma says there's only two things in life that you have to worry about.
My grandma says there are only two things in life that you worry about. Whether you're healthy or whether you're sick. If you're healthy, you ain't got nothing to worry about. But if you're sick, you got two things to worry about. Whether you're going to get better, whether you're going to get worse. You get better, you ain't got nothing to worry about. But if you get worse, you got two things to worry about. Whether you're going to live, whether you're going to die. If you live, you ain't got nothing to worry about. But if you die, you got two things. Whether you're going to heaven, whether you're going to hell. If you go to heaven, you ain't got nothing to worry about. But if you go to hell, you got two things to worry about. Original or extra crispy? That's
Kentucky Fried Chicken. I worry, a lot about everything, and I have this therapist, and she asks me at the end of every therapy session, we do it on the phone, right? And she asked me at the end of every therapy session, do you ever have this feeling that something very terrible is going to happen? And I'm like, yeah. And she says, how often? All the time. And I tell her, look, there's a saying says nothing good lasts forever. Something bad is going to happen. I'm telling it like it is to her. Yeah, I had this feeling that something bad is going to happen. So what? Because something bad is going to happen. That's the way the world works. Why do they ask that question? People try to tell you not to worry. Don't worry. Worrying is worthless. It wastes your time and it makes you feel bad. And worrying is just a complete waste of time. He said, well, you can't just not worry. When you worry, you worry. I hate it when people say, don't worry. Don't worry. There's no sense in worrying. It makes no sense to worry. What? That's like saying to someone, and I've always hated this, it's like, you got to have confidence, son. I was like, well, how can you have confidence if you don't have any confidence? Just make yourself have confidence? No, you get confidence from doing the right thing for a long time. Then you get confidence. You got to make confidence. You can't just have it. Listen, this is a phenomenon that, listen to this. I have a buddy named Kent, and he is a former radio guy, and he sent me some DVDs. And I can't believe it, but I've got a DVD player. I've got this new Dell computer, and I actually ordered a DVD player just in case on it. So it's got a DVD player. No one uses those anymore. No one has a DVD player on their desktops or their laptops anymore, but I do. So he burned, there's a phrase we haven't used in a while, a couple of CDs for me from some concerts that he had seen. 3 DVDs he sent over to me, including America, my first favorite band, America, right? Because it was my first favorite song. My first favorite song ever when I was a child was Horse with No Name. It was his number one song with this fabulous guitar solo. That's why I loved it. It was the guitar solo in it. Not necessarily the singing. Been through the desert on a horse with no name. But that was when I was 9. Now I'm out here and I live in the desert some 60 years later. And I have been through the desert on a horse with no name. There are horses everywhere around here. Ranches everywhere in the middle of the desert. The Mexican families, they'll take you out on a horse ride whenever you want. Have you ever ridden a horse? There's an art to it. You don't just jump on a horse and ride it. You know, I woke up the next day and let me tell you, my ass was killing me. Everything from here in was killing me. You got to go with the flow on those horses, man. It's not that easy. Boom, 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 boom. So I've been through the desert on a horse with no name. I live in the desert. You know, look at this album cover from these guys. 1971. Every song on it's an ass kicker. It is, really. 12-string, two 12-string guitar players. They're down to one guy now, I think. One guy. And they go out and tour, and he sings, and it's great to be there with them, and you just cry because it's just a chunk of childhood that you don't think about very much. You know, it takes you back to 13, 12, 11, whatever. But look at the album cover. I don't think I've ever really noticed that until now. Bunch of hippies sitting down there, you know, no shoes on, typical 70s thing, with the three Native Americans behind them. America. It's like, wow. And the Native Americans live right next door to me. They're everywhere. The reservations, they're everywhere. And then others that aren't on the reservation live right next door to me. It's all right there. My life right now is right there on that album cover. Now, is that how it is? Is that what happens? The way your childhood is formed is where your life leads you? Is that where it is? And for that reason, to this day, whenever I tell my kids I'm going to bring them a surprise home, I bring them home a fucking surprise. I don't want them holding a grudge against me when I go. That guy, he was an asshole. I will never forget the time when and I never forget the time when and I'll never forget that. I don't want that. I want them to say, yeah, he was a good guy. You should see his yard. Man, he had a hell of a yard. He kept our yard beautiful for the rest of the He was super old and didn't make any sense half the time, but woo, you should have seen our yard. I'm serious. I want my legacy to be that to my children. Yeah, he was a nice guy, but man, you should have seen our yard.